I'm going to go ahead
All
and end that
right.
poll.
Hmm?
I'm going to go ahead and end that poll, and it looks like Southwest won 36%.
Okay, beautiful. Um, so I'm going to kick us off here. And maybe Libby, do you mind watching the waiting room while I do this
I
first
sure
part here?
will. Of course.
Okay, great. Christine, do you want to share screen now or do you want to wait until the intro and then
Happy
we can do
to.
that?
Let me do that right now.
Great. Okay. All right, welcome to one of our 202 training series. This is Productive Conversations with Republican Voters. My name is Ben. I help run fieldwork here at Common Power, and I'm joined by our amazing facilitators for this one-time training here, and we'll get to them in just a second. But before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping here. There's about 60 something people on this call. We might have a few more trickling in. So if you don't mind, please mute yourself if you are not talking. There will be a lot of opportunities during this training for you all to interact with each other in our breakout rooms and a dedicated Q&A session at the end. So please mute while our facilitators are imparting their wisdom on you all. And then as I was saying, please use the Q&A. If you need to have, wow, it's been a long month. If you have any questions, please put it into the chat. Or if you want to save it, there will be a dedicated Q&A session at the end of this training as well. Anything that Libby or Kristine mentions as a resource that you all can reference later will be also sent out after this call with the recording of the call. So to anyone who is registered, you'll get that via email. Um, you're more than welcome to turn on your camera if you like. We love to see your faces, but if you're, caught up in other things and just listening in, that's perfectly fine as well. All right. Okay. So let me start with some context here. There may be some people on this call that this might be their first call with CP or are just starting out with our organization. So, um, Common Power are we recruit, develop, and send volunteers into swing states to get out the vote and to hopefully and eventually impact election results. That is the goal, right? And so a couple of things in there. We are sent to swing states. And not only are we sent to swing states, we're sent to the swingiest districts in the swing states. We partner with local organizations on the ground, whether that is the campaign themselves, the Democratic Party, or a community organization for exactly where to go and who to talk to. And we use their strategies to win. Because we all know that in this specific election cycle, the margins are this tight. That means that to really have an impact on this election, we need to be talking to the right people. We need to be talking to the people on the margins. And the people on the margins are actually people who are one, might be disenfranchised, right? Like people, communities of color, people previously convicted felons, people who will vote our way, but simply don't have the information to. That's usually where we get sent to. However, this has been such a momentous election year with Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket that we are actually being sent to another subset of the voter bloc, Republicans and like right-leaning independents or independent voters in general. And that is because Kamala Harris is such a powerful candidate that there are Republican and independent voters who will consider voting for her while voting Republican everywhere else. Or we might be sent to uh, canvass for a candidate that has distanced themselves from the Democratic Party, but is still running as a Democratic candidate, which will help us secure majorities in the Senate and the House, right? So there are a lot of reasons for why we might find ourselves at red and purple doors. And this 202 training series is to equip and empower volunteers to be prepared at learning how to engage with purple and red voters. So if you want more information from about all of that, we have more trainings there that you can find at commonpower.org/training. This one in particular is for you to learn how to engage and disengage with Republican and independent voters. So how do you know that you're in a productive conversation? And how do you get yourself out of the conversation once you deem that is unproductive? Hopefully we hope that, oh, you got it. Okay. All right, let's meet your trainers. We have Libby and Kristine here. Okay, so um I'm gonna do their official bio, but I am going to also do my bio on them, which is how I know them. So Libby was previously on the first Pennsylvania trip back in like September 20th or something like that, where we first encountered this like, oh my gosh, we're talking to Republican and independent voters. What do we do? And like pivoted beautifully. Like your expertise and your experience really showed up. And then like the mindset of how to do that in the first place is why you were recommended to like maybe do this training for us. So I really admire you for that. Now, this is the official bio on Libby. Okay. Libby Nelson is a professional certified coach and the founder of Libby Nelson Coaching. She has been supporting clients in creating transformative change in their personal and professional lives since 2012. Libby has worked with individuals and teams from Microsoft, Amazon, Ernst& Young, and Keras, I'm not going to pronounce that right, on building trust in teams, mastering productive communication, and practicing brave leadership. Libby is the former director of Bright Futures, an organization that supports Seattle public high school students experiencing food and housing insecurity. In her spare time, she does free range hugging with Free Mom Hugs, and lately canvasses with Common Power. Libby is a certified Daring Way facilitator, trademarked, based on the work of Dr. Brene Brown, and holds a certification in diversity and inclusion from Cornell University. She has 3 kids in college, 2 political science, and 1 policy studies majors. All right. And now to Kristine. So Kristine is actually one of our volunteer trainers in the 100 level series. So if you've done our general volunteer training, you may have had Kristine before, especially in our 102 voter engagement techniques. And Kristine has I've like Jessica and Marie have come to me and was like, Kristine is so cool. Like she has so many great suggestions for how to engage with voters, and like we're changing trainings to introduce some of her techniques. Like this is amazing. So Kristine, you're going to be joining us on the last Pennsylvania trip, and that will be awesome. And Kristine's bio. So Kristine is the founder and chief trainer for Seattle Conflict Resolution. She has taken over 20 years of lessons from high incident social service settings and distilled truths and techniques in nonviolent conflict response. What began as a training for staff and volunteers became so popular she was sought out by hotels, doctors' offices, and others. She founded the company in 2018 and is now the go-to trainer for the Seattle Space Needle. Her customers return because she helps them use conflict to build loyalty through compassionate boundary setting. As of 2024, Ms. Scott has trained over 37 people. Wait, no, 37,000 people, not 37 people. She harnesses the energy of conflict to create pro-social change. In addition to being a trainer, Kristine is also a regular podcast guest and media source. She is a single mom, enjoys hiking the Pacific Northwest, and projects requiring power tools. Oof. All right. So those are your trainers, everyone. And I'm just gonna hand it over to them. They're the experts. I might pop in every now and then, but floor's all yours, Libby, Kristine.
Thank you, Ben.
Great. Thanks, Ben, for the warm welcome. Welcome, everybody. We are so thrilled that you're here. Thanks for making time to get some techniques, some skills, and some encouragement to feel more confident when you're knocking at the doors, especially when you're talking to folks who might not necessarily be born Harris supporters. We're so happy that you're here. So here's what we know. Persuasive conversations are built with relationships, not arguments. So we know that we're living in a world that has alternative facts, where facts are sort of negligible. Facts are really, the research tells us that facts are actually have very limited power in persuasive conversations. Building rapport and having meaningful conversations are what gives us the best chance of persuading a voter, particularly an independent or a red-leaning voter. So that's what we're doing here today. We're going to talk you through, what's our role as knockers of doors or callers on the phone to voters? How do we quickly build rapport and trust with voters? What do the conversations look like where we can really dive in if we have the opportunity to do that, really dive in with people? And then how do we gracefully get out of that kind of assessing, is this conversation going somewhere? Is it worth my time? Because there are so many doors to knock on and so many people waiting to be reached by Common Power that we need to know when is it time to move on? And then how do we gracefully do that? So that's our plan for today. Okay.
Great. And Libby and I will be trading off. So I hope that doesn't cause too much whiplash for folks. So many of you have been in Common Power trainings. You know that we're trusting your judgment. You know that we want you to show up as the people you are, and we're not giving you scripts that you have to say only these words, right? But the other thing is we're asking you to not have judgment for the person who answers that door. And that's still true. And we've learned that extra well as we've knocked on doors of folks that are not like yellow dog Democrats. We've learned that if we show up open to whoever they are and whatever they're going to say, that the conversation goes much better. The other thing we've learned in these doors that are kind of a new thing for us is what we're wearing actually is important, and an attitude of not feeling like we're here to save them from their mistake, right? That comes up a lot. We have this idea like that we have perhaps an experience that's a little bit better or more informed, and that can come up in what we say, and we definitely don't want that. I have to out myself. I was raised by Christian conservatives, long line of Republicans, right? And as a matter of fact, I just spent some time with my relatives and told them about this training I was doing. And I had Democrats and Republicans in the room, and I had to work at finding language that I could talk to both of them. And that's what we're doing today. That's what this training is all about, is being that bridge. Our goal is to get them to support as many Democrats on the ticket as possible. That may not be a vote for Harris, but we're going to ask anyway. Okay. To quote Charles, we're in it for the long game. What we've learned about behavior change in humans is a 10-step process. And we don't know if the person answering that door is at step number 4 or step number 9, but we're still going to be that invitation for them.
Great. Thanks, Kristine. So we know you've all received or will be receiving as you get closer to your canvassing trip, some education on what the script looks like. And we're going to model some of that and do some role playing in a few minutes. But just a couple things we want to touch on for this idea of how do we build rapport quickly at the door with people. So first of all, our number one goal is leading with curiosity. So when we enter a conversation, we've decided in our minds that we already know who somebody is. Maybe that's because they have a Trump sign in the yard, or they have a Semper Fi, Marine Corps bumper sticker, or they have an LGBTQ, flag sticker on their car. When we come up to the door and we've decided we already know who somebody is and what they believe, we've really shut down any possibility for connection. So our number one goal with these folks is to make sure we're trying to stay curious. People pick up on this immediately. They can tell if we're trying to sell something, even if that something doesn't cost any money. So how can we stay open and curious? That's what we're going to kind of dive into. Curiosity makes a person feel really heard and seen and like their voice matters. And it also then naturally translates into respect. If I feel like you really care what I have to say, I feel that I have your respect. And in the world that we live in, we just don't have that many people who approach conversations like this with much curiosity. And in the words of a great organization, it starts with us, which is about bipartisan, kind of conversation. One of the things they say is no mind was ever changed with "you're wrong." And I don't fear that anybody who's on this call today is planning to knock on a door and start telling people how wrong they are. But we want to start with that mutual curiosity and respect. And lastly, where can you find connection points with a voter who's really different from you? And I'd ask you to think about that. If you're approaching a house and you see on the minivan app that you're going to be talking to a Republican, or you see a flag, a certain flag, or you see a Trump sign in the yard, where might you begin with connecting to that person? So when I was on my trip in Pennsylvania a couple weeks ago, anytime I would see any sort of military flag or military signaling outside of the house, I would make sure to work in early into the conversation. I noticed your flag. Are you a military family? Did someone in your family serve in the military? Thank you so much for your service. My dad was a veteran. My grandfather was a World War II veteran. I really appreciate, I really connect to that. If I saw a stroller on the porch, I might drop into the conversation. Oh, it looks like you have kids or grandkids. I'm a mom myself. I have 3 children. So finding ways to connect. So that just helps to sort of build rapport instantly. We invite you to put into the chat, just think for a second, what are some connection points that you naturally might have from your own story? Is it like Kristine, where you were raised by Republicans, or you live in a Republican dominated neighborhood? Or what are some of your connection points that you might find right off the bat with Republican and right-leaning voters? So we'll just give you 10 or 15 seconds to pop that into the chat. There. Gardening. Yeah, great. Raised an Army brat. Grew up in a small town. Yep, a lot of military. Teacher. Great. Yeah, raised in a steel town. Work in the trades. Yes. Mm-hmm. Progressive Christian. Sharing a faith perspective. Yeah, dad was a POW. Wow. Yeah, great. Lots of veteran stories, lots of other good stuff. Gardening, that's a great one to comment on somebody's yard. Wow, your yard is so beautiful. I'm having a hard time keeping my mums alive this year. It's just little like human to human contact things. Great. Thanks for sharing that. And maybe you'll get some ideas in reading some other people's.
So we're going to start our conversation like any conversation starts, with an introduction. And we have so many pros in this Zoom room with us that I know that you guys have already been using the lines around introducing yourself to voters, right? But what's different this time is we're going to be a little less partisan, right? We're not going to show up wearing the team colors. So we're going to say, hi, I'm Kristine. I'm a volunteer out talking to voters. How are you doing? Did you know there's an election coming up? As we've learned, it's really important to ask them if they know. That's a very neutral question. And there are actually folks out there, so strange to imagine, that are not aware about the election. Okay, did you know? And are you planning to vote? What issues are the most important to you in this upcoming election? Again, that curiosity that Libby spoke about. And we're going to do the same role play, and I'm going to be the voter in this. And we're not going to go through the whole scenario, but we're just going to give you a sense of how friction might come up early in the conversation.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to be the common power door canvasser. So I'm going to model this imperfectly about what this might look like. So I'm going to come up to Kristine's door, and I'm going to...
Hey, yeah.
Hi, thanks so much for answering the door. My name's Libby. I'm a volunteer out talking to voters today in advance of the upcoming election. Were you aware there's an election coming up on November 5th?
Yeah, it's all over the place. I'm so tired of these signs and these radio ads. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Oh, I really get it. And thank you for being willing to be open to a conversation. I'm curious, do you have a plan to vote either in advance by mail or going to the polls?
Yeah, I'm gonna be voting.
Okay, great, wonderful. What issues are most important to you in the
election?
Oh,
I'm so upset about these immigrants. I'm reading about these immigrants just taking resources from Americans, and I don't like it.
Okay, time out. Okay, time out. I would say when I was canvassing in Pennsylvania, and curious to hear if you've been canvassing so far this election season, feel free to pop in the chat the issues that are most important to the voters that you've talked to. I would say 90% of people that I talked to said the economy were important, and second was immigration, and it was straight out of Fox News talking points on immigration. So this is a really real one. Yeah, feel free to pop that in if you'd like to. So, okay, so we want to talk about when things start to get, like right off the bat, Kristine, as this voter, is letting me know what's important to her and her perspective around it. So there are three things that we'd love you to take away from this training of how to create trust with Republican and right-leaning voters. And at the end of the call, I'm going to pop into the chat a really amazing article that is going to give you all different kinds of ideas for building trust with Republican voters. But there are three main ones we want to cover today. The very first one is creating a sense of safety in the conversation. Let's face it, there is a real lens around people who are Republicans and Trump voters right now. Read any social media thread, and it's like, how can these idiots keep believing what he's selling? I can't believe people buy into this. There's a real sort of like bias around that. And I'm just as guilty of it myself. No one is going to share their perspective with you if they don't feel that they are safe in telling the truth with what they have to say. So right away, we want to create a sense of safety in the conversation. That might look like saying something like, I hear what you're saying. I tend to see this issue a little bit differently, but I'm curious to hear more about your perspective. How do you come to think this way about it? What's your experience with it then? So we're modeling here curiosity in the conversation, and we're letting the other person know right up front, we're not on the same page, but we respect them enough to be curious about their perspective and their opinion on it. Okay. When we earn people's trust, we have a chance of being taken seriously, what we have to say. So that's goal number one. The second one is autonomy. With autonomy, there are a lot of people, a lot of conservatives feel like the world is trying to control them. You know, a lot of conservatives feel like the environment that they're living in is changing too fast for them, and that the pace of that change is trying to control what they say and how they say it. There's a lot of fears of, if I say the wrong thing, people are trying to control me by making them use different pronouns, you know, and different names. People are trying to control me by shutting down a joke that I might find funny, or political correctness, you know, at work, in the workplace, you know, in community spaces. It's funny because, you know, one of Kamala Harris's big slogans is "We're not going back." And just anecdote, I had one of my dad's cousins posted something a couple weeks ago, and she said, Kamala Harris keeps saying we're not going back. And what she doesn't understand is a lot of us want to go back. We want to go back to a time where men were men, women were women, and we didn't have to worry about X, Y, and Z. You know, this perspective, this kind of romanticization, nostalgia of this simpler time, which we know benefited, you know, one group in particular. And there were so many people that were left out of that conversation: women, people of color, you know, people of lower status and lower, you know, lower income. But this is kind of this romanticization that Trump really pushes. So all to say, autonomy, you know, getting back to this idea of autonomy, we really want to make sure that people feel like they know that we're not trying to control them. So something you might say is, hey, you know, obviously I'd love to persuade you around this, but it's not my place to tell you what to believe. You have to draw your own conclusions based on your values. So really just validating that people are entitled to their opinion. And then the very last kind of piece of building trust and rapport quickly is vulnerability. It's super vulnerable to have somebody at your door asking about your political beliefs. I mean, many of the voters we talked to in Pennsylvania were of an age where they were raised that we don't talk about religion and politics, hard stop. And then now somebody's knocking at your door, which, first of all, it's vulnerable just to answer. My experience was about 15% of homes, somebody live answered the door. So if you've never canvassed yet, that's just an expectation setter that in the era of Ring doorbells and cameras and that kind of thing, a lot of people aren't even going to answer. But the people that do answer, they're taking a risk just by showing up to the door. And then when we ask them, who they're planning to vote for or what issues are important to them. That is like instant vulnerability. And to leave them alone in that vulnerability really interrupts their ability to connect with us. And so, an invitation to think about what's something vulnerable ish that you might also share. So, for example, you might say something like, it's really vulnerable actually for me to be knocking on your door. I'm an introvert and like I kind of find this really hard, but this election is so important to me that it's worth it for me to come and talk to you about X, Y, and Z. And if they tee up an issue that's important to them, you might find a way to share something vulnerable about that. So, for example, I had somebody say, well, I just don't believe in abortion. And so I want to vote for the pro-life candidate. And I said, yeah, I really hear what you're saying. And it's really clear that, that's a huge value of yours. I'll just share being a mother is the most important role in my life. My three kids, I've never been faced with an unwanted pregnancy, but I said, my three kids are all born from in vitro fertilization. And there are a lot of states where the rights of the embryo, and the way that's the language that's used means that I never would have had the chance to become a mother. So I really feel like we need to meet in the middle, around some of these things. So anyway, that's sort of, a little bit of a fumble because it was in the moment of exactly the perfect wording. But here's the thing about vulnerability. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be eloquent. It's just two people connecting person to person. And when that happened, the person I was speaking to said, "Oh, God bless you. I'm so glad you got to become a mother." So even if that person doesn't vote for Harris, there's a personal connection that's happening. And there's like, all of a sudden, I'm not this like left wing liberal from Seattle, all of a sudden, I'm just a person. I'm a mother like her. We care about the same thing. The needle is moved a little bit, in this conversation. Okay. So, Kristine, vulnerability. Anything else we want to do with vulnerability here, or do we want to keep moving?
Would you like to show them what that looks like with the angry voter or the voter who's upset about the immigration?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Let's
All
do
right.
it.
So we've
Okay.
already knocked on
Okay.
the door, and I've just said, "Oh yeah, these immigrants, they're taking resources from American citizens."
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like you feel really passionately about that. I think I tend to see it a little bit differently. Tell me a little bit more about how you came to feel that way.
Well, on the news they're talking about they're getting all the housing vouchers and all of like this food assistance program, and I've struggled. I've had to get two jobs just to pay for stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like you're really hard worker. And yeah, I really empathize with that. I know a few people who are immigrants. Actually, my grandparents were immigrants and they really had to, you know, really work like so many hours in order to be able to just put food on the table. I really empathize with that.
Wow, white people are immigrants?
Right, right, right. Good question. Yeah. Perfect. So that's one way it could have gone. Another way, that voter might have started to be open possibly to some talking points, and you'll get those talking points when you get out to canvas. Some of those folks, that might be an opportunity to say, hey, yeah, actually, here's what Kamala Harris's plan around immigration is. Do you have any questions about that? Are you curious about that? But the goal was to make Kristine feel that she was safe to express her opinion. And sometimes when people are sharing what they believe and having a dialogue, they might start to change their own minds based on the tenor of the conversation. So, anything else you want to add about that, Kristine, or before we move
No,
on?
thank you.
Okay, great.
So let's talk about what we've learned to avoid as we are showing up to doors that are not strictly Democrat. We're obviously going to not show up with our favorite Harris t-shirt, or other things that signal us as a liberal, as a Democrat. And what we've learned is that it shuts down the conversation before it happens. It's not showing up as ambassadors. It's not showing up as open. And we have these hard facts, right? We know the data on immigration. We know the data on the economy. We would love, love, love to share that with people. Did I do that when I was with my conservative uncle yesterday? No, not at all. Because what that invites an argument or a debate, not diplomacy. So you can hold on to those hard facts, and maybe somebody will ask for them. But the real important thing I want folks to take away is I'm here to connect. So I'm not going to argue. I'm going to avoid trigger words. Okay. So if I say the word fascist in my uncle's presence, guess what happens? It's not going to go very well. Right. So just let yourself be as neutral as possible. You're going to be physically neutral, politically neutral. You're going to just be there like the social anthropologist you are, learning about them and what's important to them. And then pivoting from what's important to them into the areas that you wish to share. And we already talked about judgment and assumptions. I think we covered that really well earlier. Now comes the fun part. We are going to do our first breakout rooms. Oh, we got a hand raised by Ben. Yeah, Ben.
Yeah. Hi, I just want to add something here too, because I know some of you all also attended our other 202 trainings, and some of you watching this might also be watching it as a series. I want to put it into the context of some of the stuff that you might be hearing from the other trainings, like all of this really beautiful tips on like what to do and what to avoid is like how you get the door open, right? Like you may be in other trainings that have talked about like, okay, so I use this to open up the conversation, to just get the door open, because that's how you actually meander yourself to the goal, or like, which is like, hey, which way are you leaning? Hey, like, can we count on your support? Or like, hey, like, have you considered this about the Democratic Party or this Democratic candidate? Like to Libby and Kristine, like when we found out you just go straight to the partisan, go straight to the political, you get a door shut on you so fast. So
Right.
I just want to be clear that like all of what you're hearing in this section is like how to even have a conversation, to even begin to get to that step. But by no means is this is where you end, right? So we're going to get into a little bit of that too. Or you can watch the other trainings to figure out, well, what do I do? Or what do I say after the conversation has been open and the rapport has been built? All right,
Right.
back at it.
Thank you for setting that context. With that amazing context setting, we are going to set up our first set of breakout rooms. So how this works is you're going to be in a room with one other person. One of you is going to be the canvasser. One of you is going to be the person that's the voter. And how you will know who is who, the canvasser of the two of you will be the person with the longest hair. Okay. And we are going to put into your broadcast what your situation is. We want to see you guys using those trust building tools that we've just given you, and that neutral language and introduction that we've just given you, and trying it out. And those of you that are the voter, what's in the broadcast is your beef, your stance, your cause, right? And I want you to not make it easy for this person to build your trust, right? You are suspicious of them, rightly so. This might have been the third person who knocked on your door in the last 2 weeks. Or this might be the first person that you've seen in the small country road who isn't a neighbor, right? There's all kinds of reasons to be distrustful. I want you to kind of feel that in your body and not make it easy for them. I'm gonna be a little bit like this, and that's okay, because we want to make this real. Now, here's the extra challenge. You each have 2 minutes, only 2 minutes, to go through that introduction and that trust building. And then I want you to swap roles with that same scenario. And then at 4 minutes, I am going to put another scenario in there. And so you each will have 2 times to be this person. Okay? Is everybody clear? That's a lot. I just gave you a lot. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and make those breakout rooms. Let's see here.
I've been getting some messages that there are people who can't do the breakout. That's fine. If you can't do the breakout, don't accept the invitation. We're gonna like live move some people around so that they each get a partner, but it might take a little bit of time. So thank you for your patience.
No problem. Great. Yeah. And if you find yourself alone in a breakout room, just come out of the breakout room and we'll put you in another one.
Tried to be empathetic. I tried to be empathetic, made connection. But I don't have talking points. I acknowledge that, yes, things are much more expensive than when the pandemic. So I was feeling challenged with, because she was just like, okay, girlfriend, like, why are you here? I can tell you this, but like, okay, we all know that things are more expensive and I'm having a rough time. So
yeah. Thanks for saying that, Annie. So we were actually talking about that. The hosts were talking about that. And one of the things you'll receive when you get to your training on the ground are talking points from that local campaign. And it's hard to give talking points too far in advance because there are some policy things that are out there, but the talking points are changing every day. The hurricane has changed, hurricanes have changed some talking points, news stories, things that Trump is saying in rallies are changing some of the talking points as we go. And so that is really critical that you have those. And in this training, our primary concern is how do we get you in so you can even hopefully have the best chance of having an actual conversation. And then in a minute, we're going to talk about how do we assess if this conversation is worth staying in or not? And then how do you get out? But talking points are a missing piece, not covered here, that you will get and be getting from CP.
And Annie,
thanks for bringing that up.
And the fact that your voter wanted to hear more from you means that you win the points right there. And the next person that had their hand up is Connie, and then we're going to move on to our next slide.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I think, and maybe Ben can answer, I think it's the 102 or 201, maybe this is 201 training, and they go over, and I have them talking points. He went over 4 talking points with just excellent pinpointed things you can say about immigration, economy, abortion, and healthcare. Just 2-sentence blurbs to respond. And they said that's all you're going to need. But anyway, there's resources also in training for how to address that.
Yep. And you can find that on our training page, and we'll send this out to you after the thing. But if anybody did the talking points training, there was like this method that Puya and David came up with, was like ham, which was like hello, here, acknowledge, and mention being the mention in the talking points. This training that you are all in is a dialed in focus on the beginning, the haha, the hello and the here. And then if you want to what do you do after you accomplish the here and the hello and then the acknowledge, right? Then go to like the other trainings that we have in the series. So thank you for bringing that up, Connie.
Yeah, that's great. Great resource. Okay, thanks for sharing, everybody. And thanks for being willing to do the breakout rooms. That's vulnerable, to show up and sort of practice. Knocking on doors is a vulnerable thing to do. So just huge acknowledgement for your willingness to do that. Okay, productive conversations. So how do we know when we're in a productive conversation, when we're not? One of the things that really struck me and this is, weeks before the hurricanes, I went to my training around this. And I think it was Charles or somebody shared, you could spend 3 hours at one person's door trying to convince them to evacuate for a hurricane, or you could go to 50 doors in that same period of time. So how do you know if it's worth sticking around? And Kristine, would you mind forwarding this slide on to the next productive and unproductive? Cool. Okay, thank you. Okay, so how can you tell when you're in a productive conversation? In a productive conversation, there's a mutual of exchange of ideas that's happening. So it's talking and listening. Barb shared that it feels great to be listened to as the voter, and it's tricky because you don't want to get stuck at a door listening to somebody rant for 20 minutes. That's not a good use of your time as a volunteer. So you can tell there's something productive happening. If maybe the person vents or rants a little bit, but they're then open to a dialogue. If that's not happening and the person doesn't seem, and you've tried at least once, maybe twice to kind of redirect the conversation, and that's not happening, the person's almost stuck in a loop, that's a good time to be moving on. You can tell the conversation's productive because it's going somewhere. It's moving forward in some way. The other person might have some kind of openness. They might show a little bit of curiosity. If you share your vulnerable thing, or you share something, they are receiving it and saying something back, like you're having a dialogue with two humans. And maybe sometimes you can tell that it's moving towards some kind of resolution, even if the resolution is, well, I'll think about it, or you've given me something to think about. I had a conversation at the door with a gentleman, 26-year-old guy in Pennsylvania, who said that he was voting third party because he doesn't believe in the two-party system. And when I talked about how important his vote was and how, what if he himself was kind of the decider, the tiebreaker? He said, well, I'm going to trust my fellow Americans to do the right thing, but I'm going to vote third party, for myself. And it was like, but we kept the conversation. I felt like he was in it. He wanted to talk it through. And by the end of the conversation, I kind of said, when you go in the voting booth, on that Tuesday, and it's a really close race, I hope you'll remember our conversation and you'll consider voting for Harris. And he said, well, I'll think about it. This is a conversation that moved somewhere, that was productive. How do we know we're in an unproductive conversation? First of all, trust your intuition. If a conversation feels personally threatening to you or unsafe in any way, unproductive conversation. Don't spend your time there. This is, especially true to remember if you're canvassing with a partner of somebody who is in, an underserved population, if you're canvassing with somebody who's a person of color, if you're a woman talking to a man who's ranting, use your best judgment. Common Bauer always, always, always wants you to trust that gut feeling. And in many cases, there will be other canvassers coming in the weeks after you. And so it's okay, to step away. That would be considered an unproductive conversation for you. If the person is super defensive and they're just not letting you get in anywhere, unproductive. If they're really closed, I had one guy tell me, you're wasting your time. Okay. Thanks for telling me. That was my clue. It was time to move on. And some people will be extremely direct like that. If people are showing any lack of empathy or any respect for you and what you're doing, unproductive conversation. And then circling back to something I talked about a few minutes ago, sometimes there's this circular loop, repetitive arguments. You'll feel like you're getting somewhere, and all of a sudden the Fox News talking point comes back up. And if you're feeling like, okay, this person's really stuck, almost like a record that's skipping in the same place, that's a good time to gracefully exit. And we're going to talk about how to do that in a moment. And really, anytime you feel like, I've spent a couple minutes, this isn't going anywhere, it's time to move on.
Great, thank you. So when people are defensive and attacking you, and they're kind of not rational, is that a sign to disengage? Okay, so here's the question. We've just learned that they could be doing these things and it could be a productive conversation. Ooh. So now the question is, do you have the resources to kind of hold space for somebody who's dishing you some tension? Okay. So this is where my conflict work comes into play. If you want to redirect this voter, and you have the resources to be kind and curious and have clear boundaries, then I say go for it. If you see those signs that this is a productive conversation, might be a little tense, right? Might be a little uncomfortable for me, but I have the resources to lean in. Here's how to do it. Okay, this is the crux of it, because we've all been socialized and conditioned to be on like batting for this team or that team. And so we're not really usually savvy in how to lean in when that tension is on that front porch. Okay. So many of you have taken 102 and we talk about VBOS, validate boundary option support. This is that time to pull out your VBOS. So if you choose to redirect the voter, and you can be kind, what we're going to do is we're going to do a little role play where Libby and I are going to show you what VBOS looks like on that porch. Okay, so we've already done the first part of that acronym of the hello, and you know the hearing them, hearing what their issue is. We've just asked them, what is your issue? Okay. And Libby, I've just asked you that. Go ahead and tell me what you think.
You've just asked me what my issue is that's important to me. Yeah. Okay. Well, you know, I got to be honest. I know Trump's a jerk, but she's just way too liberal. And I just don't see anyone taking her seriously. So I don't think I can vote for somebody who's, yeah. I mean, he's not the greatest, but I guess it's just a compromise I have to make.
Got it. Got it. So what I'm hearing you say is because she's female, you're pretty sure that no one will take her seriously. Did I get that right?
Well, that, and I just don't think she has, really, she's not experienced enough. I mean,
Okay.
she just doesn't have the experience.
Okay, great. I think I understand what you're saying, Libby. You're really worried about her lack of experience and being taken seriously. And as a woman who like has so many people not take me seriously because of my gender, I can really relate to your concern about that. And I can validate that that's a common concern. That happens to women all the time. You know, I've personally made the choice to vote against that form of gender oppression, but I respect whatever choice you want to make. And if you would like to hear more about her positions, because it sounds like you're really curious about what she would do if she had power, I would be happy to talk to you more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't feel good about voting for him. So I guess, yeah, tell me what, convince me, change my mind.
Sure, great. All right, and the next one, I've just been asked by Libby about, tell me what your issues are or what's important to you. And I'm just
Yeah.
going to flat out say, you know what? I think Trump is the best thing that's ever happened to this country. And he's got those damn Chinese communists afraid of him. And that's exactly what we want.
Got it. Yeah, sounds like you're pretty decided about it. Sounds like you have a pretty strong perspective. Maybe you've done some research and homework around foreign policy, and that's an issue that's really important to you.
Oh, yeah. Those Chinese, I'm really worried about those Chinese.
Yeah, got it. Okay. Thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate you being willing to have the conversation. Sounds like you feel pretty convicted about Trump. I'm not sure. Have you heard about your down ballot candidate, your Senate candidate, and have you heard at all about what their stance is around China?
No, yeah, I don't know about my senators.
Yeah, so I'd love to share with you. And then I'll share a little something about a down ballot candidate. I might have in that stance, I could have stayed on, I could have persisted a little more, but I have a feeling that throwing talking points at this voter about foreign policy and China probably was going to require her to dig in even further because she was so clear on it. We don't have enough time to blow that out completely, but sometimes, the option is okay, we're not going to get them on Harris, but can we talk to them about some of the down ballot candidates in Pennsylvania in District 1, which was Bucks County? I'm not sure if voters will be going there in the future. Ashley Ahas, congressional candidate. She is an Army helicopter pilot, veteran, West Point grad. I had some Trump voters who were supporting her by the end of the conversation because of what we had to say. So don't count somebody out just because maybe Trump's their man. Maybe there's another way to connect with them. Okay.
And one more,
Great.
and this time, I have just asked Libby, like, tell me what issues are important to you.
I don't talk to people like you. All of you are just totally brainwashed by the liberal media. I mean, there's no point in me even sharing. I'm sure, you're going to call me a dummy and you think I'm just an idiot anyway.
No, I wouldn't be here if I thought you were a dummy. I'm really interested in what you think. And I also share your kind of your concern about how hard it is to get good information from the news these days. That's why I'm on front porches, because I want to hear directly from voters. Could you tell me more about what you think? What's important
Yeah.
to you?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great response to that. And in fact, Kristine, I had a woman in Pennsylvania who said, do you know of a site where I can go to just read what the candidate's policies on each issue is? I don't know how to trust and who to believe. And I know there's a training coming up, or maybe just was, with Ahmed Baba. If you get a chance to watch his training on misinformation in the media, that is a phenomenal training. He offered it to us on the ground in Pennsylvania during trip one, and it's in the Common Power Library, or will be in the next couple of days. So if you get a chance to do that and have some talking points around media, I think highly recommend. Awesome.
Great.
All right.
I'm gonna create breakout rooms.
Okay.
And I think if it's okay, we're just gonna put folks back in the same room. We're gonna move a
Okay.
few people to try to make sure that everybody has 2 people and not 3 people in a room.
Okay.
So we're gonna be doing the same thing as we did last time, but this time we want you to do that validation and that option, offering them their options, right? Somebody asked if we could put the training in the chat. Does that mean that they want the VBOS redirection in the chat, maybe?
Or
I think
maybe
it's the,
Ahmed's
yeah, I
training.
could put that in there for sure.
Thanks,
All right,
Ben.
thank you. And the bad news about putting it in the chat is you won't be able to see the chat once you're in the breakout rooms. So this might actually be a good point to write down: validate, boundary, option, support.
Great.
Okay,
Great.
so here's
We're going
how
to
it's
give
gonna
folks
go.
a scenario. Okay, go ahead.
We're gonna dump the scenarios into the breakout rooms, and you and your partner are gonna each have 2 minutes. Okay. All right.
Great.
Opening all the rooms.
Same thing, if
See
you
you in a
are
minute.
not able to join a breakout room, simply don't accept it and just stay here, and we'll be moving some people around.
I know not everybody
Oh,
can.
wait, it's the same rooms. Oh, I think I remembered from the last one.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
but we got some
We
new
got some
people
new
coming
people,
in.
huh?
Yeah, so Doug, Nathan, Janice, Arizona Janice. I'm gonna assign you both to room 4. Doug, let me know, or Janice, let me know if you are not able to do that. But here you are. Oh, and Kendra's coming in. Let's go. All right, let's see. And then we have um Michaela, Alana Michaela. Michaela and Sean, I'm gonna move you to room 14.
Great. And
Unless
then we have
you are
Karen.
not. Yeah. So Karen and Kendra, I'm gonna assign you both to a room as well. That's gonna be okay, room 25. But feel free to come back here if you are not able to do a breakout right now. No worries.
And Libby, are you running the timer again?
I am now. Thanks for the heads up on that. Okay.
20, there we
Yeah.
go.
So
Who's
we'll just give him another
to room
minute
26?
and a half.
There we go.
And is there anybody hanging around in the main room here who isn't in a breakout room but wants to be in one?
Round 10. There we go. Room 6. All right.
All right, just broadcast the swap.
Okay, I think we should all be set. Everybody had at least one other person to talk to, and everybody here in this current room should have declined. Or if you're not in a room and you want to be, please let us know.
And we have about 30 seconds left, Kristine.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, that's time.
All right. I started typing early because I know I'm slow.
All good. Did we have them swap halfway through that one, or we're just going to give them the next one?
I had them swap.
Okay, great. So how long do you want this timer for?
Just 2 minutes.
Just 2. Okay.
Oh, I want to pause recording real quickly.
Come back, peoples.
Yeah. Welcome back, everybody. Awesome. Great.
Oh, sorry,
okay.
Sorry. Woo, woo. My slides started going crazy there.
No worries. We can't see it anyway, so
Oh, that's right. I'm not sharing
at the moment. So you're safe.
Do we
You're
want to
safe.
do a debrief or do we want to go to slides, Libby?
Let's do a quick debrief.
Okay.
Thoughts and experiences. Just a couple, like anybody want to share something that stood out to them from their interaction?
Well,
Sandy.
Go. Oh no, those are a different share.
So
no, that's
Peter,
not.
Peter and I were talking about this. The challenge in this thing is that we're told we have to work and develop trust. Not going to happen in a minute or 2 minutes in this scenario. And I think the internal calculus we have to say is, I want to hear what a person has to say, and I don't want to shorten the thing. So I feel a little it's terribly artificial in this, but I think that, and when only one person in 10 is going to answer the doorbell anyway, so to speak, there's certainly an investment of time that seems to be important. I'm imagining that we each have our own internal compass to determine at what point is this, am I just hitting wall, and just say, okay, thank you for your time. Do you have a sense from your experiences as to the amounts of time people are investing that feels it's the right amount of time?
Yeah, I can jump in here.
Great.
So that's really good. I will say that like in my experience of canvassing, and if it's a really good conversation that's going somewhere and to Libby's point resolves, right? Never longer than 7 minutes. Like a good conversation is like 5 to 7 minutes, like the time it takes for an egg to boil, right? You don't want to overboil your egg. The perfect egg is just a little jammy. So like if someone is going on past the 5, 7, 10 minute mark, you gotta wrap it up. The only caveat to that is that like if you have had like a really bad day, if you had a really bad day and you're at like a door with a conversation that's actually going really well, like it's going somewhere, and like maybe this is a supporter from the start, right? And the conversation is going longer than 10 minutes, maybe take some of that time for yourself as a way to recharge. And we're going to go into this in the next segment here, so a little bit of a segue, but no longer than 5 to 7 minutes for me.
Ben, I just have to share regarding that. I had a rough day, my second day of canvassing in Pennsylvania, but the last voter of the day I talked to was a 58-year-old man who was a UPS driver, and he said he had never voted ever in his life. but he was voting for Harris because he could not stand that jerk anymore. And it was like, it just refilled my bucket. So I just stayed and talked to him a little longer. It's my last house of the day, but I needed that. I needed that emotional lift. It was beautiful.
How about one more report out from Stu and Trudy, and then we'll move on.
Well, I think we had conversation with the main thing we kind of really focused on the introduction, of who I am, why I'm there, right? And I mean, one point that I had brought up was that, well, we're going to be in North Carolina. Our son lives in North Carolina. He's been very involved in voter outreach and politics for many, many years. And he says, when you come to the door, if you're not clear on why you're there, right? People are not, it's like he said, well, it's, whether it's a Southern thing or it's his experience of it in North Carolina is that people will kind of see through you. They really want to know why you're there, right? And I think that our approach here has been, we're trying to avoid that, right? And our partner, her approach to answer to that was, well, you talk about why it's so important to you that, yeah, I'm from Seattle, I'm coming to Tucson because, I really feel this is very important and it makes a real big difference what's happening here. And her response was about North Carolina is, that's a good talking point. My son lives in North Carolina. I really care about what's going on in the state. So I thought we had some interesting, good things to talk about.
Right. You found a common connection point.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
One of the things that all of us were stuck on is that we didn't really understand the boundary part of this.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about that real briefly before we move on. You have your own personal boundaries about how you wish to be treated, how much time you wish to have a conversation, how resourced you are to get flack from somebody. You get to state your boundary at any moment, and it can change from door to door, right? My boundary when I'm talking to a man who's yelling at me is different than when I'm talking to a woman that's yelling at me. That's just me listening to my body and my sense of safety. So for example, in the earlier scenario, when Libby is saying something at me, say for whatever reason my boundary was triggered, I would just simply say, I hear you, and I'm sorry that I'm not the right person to have a good conversation with you. You deserve to have a good conversation, and I'm not it. But I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah.
Right? So we're going to be talking, that is a beautiful segue into the conversation.
Thanks for teeing that up. I really appreciate it. So how do we get out? How do we get out of the conversation? How do we get out of the conversation if it's a conversation that isn't productive and isn't going anywhere? And how do we, end the conversation if it was a good conversation and maybe they're still not convinced, that they're persuaded? One of the things that I really loved to say at the end of every conversation is, thank you so much for answering the door. Thanks for being open to a conversation. No matter what happens in this election, we have to be able to talk to each other, and I just really appreciate being able to connect with you, and I think that's it. Like, how can we break down the stereotypes of us versus them and just be humans with each other for a couple of minutes? And so an invitation to think about what a closing line might sound like to you. And maybe it's, hey, it sounds like we're in different places. Thanks for being willing to dialogue with me. But I'm going to open up a whiteboard here.
I'm sorry, Libby, we won't have time for our whiteboard exercise that I worked so hard.
Whiteboard. Thanks for doing that. Okay. Well, if you have ideas and want to put in the chat ideas for closing lines while we move into this final portion, please go ahead and put ideas in, and then you can write down ones that you feel like are ones that you might want to take with you.
Yeah, great. And I'm sorry that we are running short on time. So you being resourced to have these conversations is really important. We hear about day 3 hitting the wall. We hear about difficult conversations hitting the wall. take such good care of yourself. So obviously excellent self-care is a prerequisite for doing this job as volunteers. Also be clear on your no-goes. Whatever those boundaries are, listen to your body when those triggers come up, and figure out how much you can push the envelope, right? Like, okay, I have some envelope pushing to do when it comes to talking to older men, right? Figure out how much we can push the envelope on things that are new and uncomfortable to us, and how much we just need to listen and say, all right, I need to disengage, because we do not want to move into fight, flight, freeze, right? We don't want to have that sense of doom, that sense of, oh, I need to protect myself. It takes a lot of energy to be emotionally open. So I'm just encouraging you all to give yourself permission to really listen to what you need as you do this very important job. There is a way to sidestep a fight, flight, freeze reaction, and it's based on our biology. If you take 5 deep breaths, I know this sounds very cheesy, but how that works is it actually moves apart the nerve endings on the outsides of your lungs. Once those nerve endings move just an extra micro apart from each other by those deep breaths, it triggers to your body, you do not need to be in fight, flight, freeze, sympathetic nervous system response. It's that easy. So if you do 5 deep breaths between each door, what you're doing is you're telling your body, hey, I got this. It's completely safe. What I'm doing is completely safe. Okay. The other thing I want you to do is, our memory will remember the bad stuff, because that's how memory works, right? It's about survival. So I want you to encode the positive experiences you're having at the doors as well. We heard some great stories from Libby and from Ben today about positive experiences they've had. Great. Guess what? If you share that with your partner, you're more likely to remember it. So when you're at the end of your turf and you and your partner or your car are debriefing what happened, name one thing that was hard and just be honest about it. Oh, it was really hard when blah, 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 blah happened, and just get a little support, right? One thing you learned so that you keep on improving your technique as you move forward, and a bright spot. If you share those 3 things a few times throughout your day canvassing, you'll notice it gets easier because you're reassuring your skills. All right. And with that, we finally.
Wait, one second, Kristine. Sorry, can you go back to the previous slide?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing I want to add here is that, like, yes, definitely check in with your partner kind of periodically, especially after a hard door or like in between tours and all of that. And I also want to make a note too, if you are the partner that someone is confiding in, right? If someone came up to you and was like, hey, I had a really bad interaction, something happened, and I'm feeling really off about it, I'm getting kind of freaked out. It's also on us to support each other too. So when you hear that, maybe remind your partner to take those 5 deep breaths. When we're in fight, we may not remember the ways to take care of ourselves. So that's why we're in carpools. One is for efficiency, but it's also for safety and support. So do your part on reminding each other these self-care tactics, and also to be there and to listen, right? The skills that we're learning here in this training also applies in supporting each other too.
Beautiful.
My car decided we would stop and get ice cream after a really tough turf. We're like, we need an ice cream break. And then we all sort of like talked and got our energy back. So do what you need to do.
We're right up against the line, but we did promise that we would do some Q&A time. And so those of you that need to leave, no hard feelings. Those of you that want to stick around, do Q&A, please do so. We wish to be giving you as many resources as possible during this time. So just put up your hand and we will just call on folks in order.
Yeah. And if you have to go, thank you for being here and spending the evening with us. We so appreciate you.
Sandy.
Someone put in the chat about the misinformation training. Is that the name of it?
Yeah, so I'm asking people to go on our website to do commonpower.org/training, and I'll put that instead because it has all of our trainings on it, how to RSVPs, as well as recordings of all existing training. So you don't need to go anywhere else for that.
Great.
So, yep.
But Ben, I don't think that was a training, right? The one that he mentioned.
It is. It's one of our new 202 trainings is something misinformation, disinformation voters.
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
yep,
Thanks. Thanks.
for sure.
I have that on my calendar as happening Thursday, October 24th, 5 to 6:30 Pacific time.
Okay,
Yep, it's on the
great
24th.
information.
Great. Got it.
Since I will be in an airplane at that point in time, will that be recorded so it's available
Yes.
later?
All trainings are recorded and will be put on the same webpage. So commonpower.org/training. Yep.
And I did just pop in the chat. I had done it a little bit earlier, but it was during the breakout groups. If you're interested in reading more about building trust with Republican voters, that data was borrowed from work by Karen Tamarius at Smart Politics, and you can find it on her website, or you can click on this link.
Yeah. Other questions that folks have related to the content or Common Power?
Stu, I see you have a hand raised. Was that an accident? I see you're walking. I think so. Maybe.
Stu's not a question asking
Oh, here he
spot yet.
comes. Here he comes.
Hi, we just lost connectivity and had to move to a different room and turn on the light. But then meanwhile, I kind of forgot what I was going to talk about. And then, so
Stu, do you want us to circle back to you? I see Andrew has his hand up.
Yeah, do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got it. Yep. Sorry, Andrew, I accidentally muted you.
That's okay. Thank you so much for this. This has been really impactful. Just to get a sense of kind of that energy commitment, how long are you out canvassing on a given day? Is it a 12-hour day, an 8-hour day? Like, what are the shifts that we're talking about?
Yeah. So unlike like official volunteer shifts, what we do is like we're out all day. So if you're on a common power trip, you can expect to be canvassing from around 10 to 5 or 5:30. And then we take breaks, you know, as Libby was saying, if you need a break, take a break. And then we also do lunch together. So you spend a whole day out with your car group.
Yeah.
And Kay Boris Brown, I see your hand is up.
Hi there. The one thing that I always stumble on is going from that we've established rapport, we're kind of talking, and then I'm going to go into selling mode. And it always feels so awkward. And I'm wondering if there is some kind, I'm saying that in terms of speaking with Republican or right-leaning voters or whatever. I mean, when you hit the Dems doors, it's an easy deal. Is there a training that addresses that, graceful ways to make that transition from I've been listening to you and now I'm here for what I'm really here for?
Ben, do you want to answer it? Do you want me to answer it? Yeah.
I can start, and then Libby or Kristine, if you want to fill in the gaps, absolutely. I'll just say like, no, we're not doing a training specifically for that. But what I found is that like, because everybody has their own way of transitioning, that's why it's so hard to prescribe a transition method, right? Like somebody might be able to go from like that rapport building to just slide really smoothly into like, well, may I ask where you're leaning in this election? It seems like you're very invested in it. Like, can I just get a sense of where you're going with in the fall, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like very that subtle, like using the language of like, well, where are you leaning? Like, can I get a sense of what you're thinking about, of like supporting, right? Mm-hmm. And then like as people tell, and then the other thing that I like to do is that all canvassers, if you're out there, you're holding lit. Like you have in your hands who you're supporting. So something that's really that I did in NPA in Michigan is that I just subtly like just flash my lit. I'm just like when I'm ready to like make that, or like if I just make it more clear that like, hey, we're about to talk about this person right here. And then like people notice that, you know, sometimes when where you have your lit, somebody just told me that like they look down, it's like, I see who you're holding, I'm supporting that person. Or I see what you're here for, don't bother. don't waste your time, you know? So that's another way of like visually cueing people into the next step of the process there. Some people have, so like the subtle questioning of like, where are you leaning? The like the physical of like, here's, I'm going to show you what I'm doing here. And then there's a third one that I've seen where someone is just like, all right, so it looks like you have a plan to vote. Can I, it's just very outright. It's like, can I count on your support for Kamala Harris? Or can I count on your support for this person? Especially if you have like a really authentic or sincere conversation, that some people that just appreciate the honesty, right? And just being outright with it, that has also worked too. So yeah, and I've seen other people just work their magic that's unique to them at doors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful answer. The only other thing I would add from my personal experience is how can you use some of your own personal story and personal life experiences to transition? So it's less of a sell and it's more of a mutual sharing. So they've shared what's important to them. You know, let's say they are worried the Democrats are going to take all their guns. You know, one thing I've said is, you know, I believe in your right to responsible gun ownership. My concern is, how can we keep the guns out of the hands of people who would use them to do harm? You know, and so is there a way for you, you know, I'm a mom, I'm worried about the school shooter drills my kids have to do in school. You know, so are there ways that you can weave in your perspective that keeps it feeling like a conversation? And that just takes practice, but you can practice it with your family. You know, you can practice it with your friends, your Republican leaning people in your life. So
see, that's the problem. I have no Republican friends.
Wow,
I got relatives
no,
I can spare.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Barb, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you very much for this training. I put something in the chat and I feel like it was already partially addressed. I think I missed something in the VBOS. I felt like the first role play, I knew exactly what to do, but I was kind of lost. Like, what am I supposed to do in the second one? I guess the boundary part is to be aware of my own boundaries.
Yes.
If there's any more to that, let me know. And then the options, remind them of their choices. I'm not quite sure what you were getting at.
So they have a choice about continuing the conversation, right? We can, if we're feeling like this isn't quite productive, I'm not sure this is going anywhere, it's a nice time just to say, hey, would you like to learn more about Harris? Right? Put the choice back on them. Give them a commitment point in the conversation. And if they say, oh no, I don't want to hear anything about her, right? Like, okay, great. You've given them an option. They've made a very clear choice that they don't want to have the conversation. And then you give them that very kind exit that Libby just trained us on. Or maybe their options are as simple as, hey, did you know, your polling place is here? Like, just want to make sure you have all the information about what's next. Right. So validate, hey, this is what I hear you saying. I'm just a volunteer. I really can't help you on the details of foreign policy, but I do know, like, here's a website you can go to like learn more about like what Harris is thinking about Gaza. So just, these are things that normally happen in conversations. We just don't realize it. So I was the sappy one who put some titles on it.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions? I just want to like give you guys such credit because there are 33 people still hanging on every word we're saying at 6:40, 10 minutes after the sucker was supposed to be done, because you guys are so dedicated as volunteers who are doing such important work for this democracy. And I just want to remind you all that when our forefathers wrote this Constitution and borrowed heavily from the Cherokee Nation what we the people would even look like, they had no idea what participative democracy could be. They had never seen it before. This is the year we get to see it, thanks to people like you. And so I'm so privileged to be a part of this group.
Barbara, did you have a question?
Yeah, sure. Now I don't know how to get my hand down.
It's saying I did thumbs down.
I want to say thank you to both of you. Thank you to all of you. And I want to say that maybe it was because I was in Wisconsin, but everyone I encountered was pleasant. They could tell me how strongly they felt about something and have a good day. And maybe that's reassuring to those who have or haven't been out. But yeah, there's a lot of really good human beings out there on both sides, all sides.
There really are.
Yeah. Yeah.
There really are.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
I think that's a good way to close. Thank you for the beautiful closing, and thank you all for being here and for supporting one another. Have fun, have a great time, change hearts and minds, and I hope it's a beautiful.
Let's win. Yeah.
Let's win.
Okay.